Welcome to Homebrew by J.W. Martin Real Estate, where we uncover the true stories of what's brewing in South Carolina's local business scene. I'm Joey Martin, and each week we sit down with the ones who are pushing through the grind. Business owners, creators, and community leaders who have fought through the tough times and come out stronger. No fluff, just real stories, smart insights, and a whole lot of lessons learned the hard way. Let's dive in. So very excited to have our guest on here today. Mr. David Knox is someone that has been teaching and training real estate agents for decades. And I've been fortunate enough to receive some training myself from him. My team is a member of David Knox's training video series. Welcome to the podcast, David.
Thank you, Joey, very much. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for your business and for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, David, you've had quite a career and you've been training real estate agents since the 70s. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got my license in 72 and sold real estate and then became a branch manager. And I was horrible at that and I hated it. It just was not even in my DNA.
Nice.
And also in my early years of sales, I came out of college and I was still partying early on from 72 through about 75 or 6. So I was just still a kid and had not grown up. And I decided I quit drinking in January 76. And I said, I got to clean up my act. If I want to have a real life and career, I got to make some changes. And I decided to quit drinking for a month. And then it became 2 months, 3 months, 5 months. And now it's been 40 some years. And that at my deathbed, I will cite that as the greatest decision I ever made in my life was to get back to sobriety. That was important for me. And then all of a sudden became top salesperson in our office, and Ralph Burnett, the owner of the company, who was going to fire me because I was just and then he discovered that I'd quit drinking, clean up my act. And then he ended up asked me to speak at a training class. And I said, wow, I'm honored. You want me to train the agents? And I said, sure. And I went into the conference room and I think there were 20 some agents in there. And I did a presentation on working with buyers. And at the end I went, I love doing this. This is fun. And I had this thought, I remember this moment where I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And Ralph Burnett called me up and said, hey, how'd you like doing that? And I said, I loved it. I'd like to do this for the rest of my life. I enjoy it. He says, great. They thought you were the best presenter of the 2-3 week period. And so that was a marriage. And I think it's beautiful when in life people find that calling, that moment where you go, this is correct, whether it be a marriage or job or whatever it is. So I'm grateful to have had that moment. I'm grateful to Ralph for giving me that opportunity. In fact, April 19th of 73 is when I first started working for him. And I wrote him a note every single April 19th. I wrote him a note every April for years. And early this year, he passed away and was sad to have him gone. But his wife came up to me, Peggy, and said, Ralph really appreciated the notes and the calls on the anniversary. But that's what got me involved in training. And that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I've done it ever since.
That's really incredible. I can relate very much to when I was in my younger years. I was out on my own very young and going down a pretty bad path and drinking and going wild and crazy. And I was offered the opportunity to get into real estate when I was 21 years old. And I still every year call and thank the gentleman's name is Jeff Davis. I call and thank him every year for getting me into the real estate business. So I can certainly relate. It changed the whole trajectory of my life getting in this business. I can certainly relate, David, when I first started in real estate, I was going down kind of a similar path, just wild, crazy and immature. And I was offered the opportunity to get into real estate at 21. And I still call and thank the gentleman, Jeff Davis, that got me into real estate when I was 21 years old. I'm so thankful for him. He's one of the many mentors that I've had over the years that have certainly helped me. So it sounds like you're cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, I've had some great mentors and I'm grateful. I've had a wonderful career and a wonderful life. And on my website, davidknox.com, I've got a whole pull down of all the people in my life. My best friend, a guy named Dar Reedy, was one of the partners with Ralph Burnett. And actually Dar got me into the business and Ralph and Dar became co-owners of that company. And then in 82 or something, I went to Ralph. I said, Ralph, and in the meantime, I became a CRS instructor, certified residential specialist. I auditioned for that in 79 and I was hired. So I became a CRS instructor, which was quite the deal. They take 100 applications, they interview, I don't know, 20 and they hire 3 or something.
Right.
And so that got me on the national scene. And I'd been doing well there. And I told Ralph, I said, I want to leave and start my own training business. And he goes, don't do that. What do you mean don't do that? He says, don't do that. And I went, oh, okay. So I didn't do that. And very shortly after that, they had a huge party impact business meeting out at the Lafayette Club in Wayzata, Minnesota, quite the place. And we all went out there and Ralph got up and announced that he had sold the company to Merrill Lynch because Merrill Lynch
Wow.
got in the real estate business back in early 80s and they bought 35 of the really top companies in America. And I went up to Ralph afterwards and I said, is this why you didn't want me to start my own business? He goes, yes. He says, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you here. You don't need to start your business this soon. You're going to be part of the national company and there's going to be some great opportunity. And I went, thank you for not letting me make that mistake. And of course, he couldn't tell me before because it was obviously secret. And then I went up to a guy named, the chairman of the board of Merrill Lynch was a guy named Dakin Ferris. He'd flown in on his Grumman Jeep 550 or whatever. And I walked up to him and I said, hey, my name is David Knox and I do the training here. And I said, do you have a national training division for Merrill Lynch? He says, no, we don't. And I said, you're going to need one. And I'd like to head it up. And he looked at me like, who's this punk? And I think later on, I think Ralph spoke up for me. He said, oh, he's a really good trainer. He does this and that. And 3 months later, I had the job. And I moved out
Wow.
to Connecticut in December of 83. And I headed up the national training department for Merrill Lynch and had a great time. I was racing cars against Paul Newman. I was dating a wonderful woman, traveling all over, kicking off company acquisitions. And it was really one of the most charmed times of my life. I'm really grateful for those experiences. And then in 86, I went to my boss at Merrill Lynch and I said, I'd like to leave and start my own company. And he says, don't do that. Do you really need to do that now? I said, I don't have to do it now. He said, why? I said, we're going to get out of the real estate business. We're going to sell the company and we'd like to keep our C-suite together until that happens. I said, okay, okay. Wait around. Let me know when it would be a good time for me to leave because I'd like to, in fact, my line to this, I'd like to start my own business and have you be my first client.
Yeah.
And in January of 87, my boss came to me and said, if you'd like to go ahead and plan, we're going to sell the company to Prudential. And if you want to leave in June. So I had 6 months of salary and I started my own business, got an 800 number, bought a home back in Minnesota because I'd moved to Connecticut and started David Knox seminars. And Merrill Lynch was in fact my first client until they sold to Prudential. And now Prudential has become Berkshire Hathaway. So that whole genesis.
That's quite a journey and something that you just skimmed right over that you got to tell us a little bit about is you were racing cars with Paul Newman. I'd certainly love to hear a little bit more about that.
In 1979, in fact, after I quit drinking and went through treatment, I was sick and tired of these boring real estate land yachts. I was sick of it. I said, I want a sports car. And I bought a 69 427 Corvette, took it to the Corvette Club. And they said, hey, you can put it on Brainerd Racetrack. And I said, cool, that would be fun. And they said, what class should you be in? I said, heck, I've never done this before. You should be in class D, I think, but since you're new, we'll put you in the novice class. My time for the laps in the novice class I would have won my class. So the next day they said, we're going to put you in your regular class. So I pretty much got addicted to racing cars. And then I bought a real race car. And then when Merrill Lynch moved me to Connecticut, I think I bought another race car out there and I got into SCCA Sports Car Club of America, raced Lime Rock, Watkin Glen, Pocono. And that was Paul Newman's home track on Lime Rock. And he was an incredibly good driver. And I remember him, I can't remember, he said it to us, that he was a young kid, so he didn't drive by the seat of his pants. He did it more consciously. But his shift points, you could watch his shift points, and they were within 6 feet every single lap. He was like a metronome and an incredibly good driver. And so I entered a professional race to train. If you Google Trans Am Lime Rock 1986, you'll see that I started DFL, dead last. And I had an amateur car. I was overweight, underpowered, but they let me in at promoter's option because they knew I was a good driver and I was pretty close to the lap record in some of my races. And they said, but you got to keep up 106% of the fastest lap or we're going to pull you off the track. Yeah. And I said, okay. And I did the math based on my lap times and the pole position. I figured I'd be lapped 5 times. And I was. Paul Newman lapped me 5 times. So I knew I was EB 5 times. but I started 36th and I finished 19th in my first pro race. And it was a huge victory for me. I
Yeah.
knew I wasn't going to win the race. So just to finish first, you must first finish.
Yeah.
And it was a
Absolutely.
lot of fun. And so I look back at that as that you don't always win every race in life, but if you can enjoy the experience, that in and of itself is the reason to do stuff. And I've said that to agents. There's three outcomes of human activity: reward, experience, and learning. And the reward, you get the listing, you get the wife, you read the book, everything works out and you're happy. Sometimes you may not win. Like when I play golf, heck, last time I played golf, I lost a ball putting, but and I enjoy the experience being out with good friends on a fast golf cart with a cigar. Yeah, it's fun.
Right.
I'm no good at it. And then of course you've got times I went through divorce 10 years ago, and that'll go down as the most painful thing that happened in my life. And of course, recovery from alcoholism, also big loss, huge loss.
Yeah.
But then the L is the third side, the lesson, the learning. And if you can come out with the lesson, at least you got something. And
Yeah. Most definitely.
I've got a lot of lack of rewards where all I got was the lesson, and I'm grateful for the lessons. Painful, God, they're painful. It's a tough way to learn, but it would be tougher to have the pain and the loss and then not learn.
Right.
That's a real lose.
Yeah, yeah, without question. I can understand where you're coming from there. And I love that theory that you have there from the lessons learned. I think some of the most valuable lessons that I've had over the years have been from my biggest failures.
Yeah, that's prophetic. That's where you learn, sadly.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, some of the toughest times in my life is when I've gotten thicker skin from it. It's shaped my character. It's shaped me into who I am today
Yeah.
from some of the biggest failures.
Yeah, good for you. You took away the lesson. That's the important part.
Yeah, yeah. And so you've got, you were a trendsetter within the real estate industry way before podcasts were a thing. You were interviewing agents and teaching agents through video. You had a studio set up and everything. Very, you know, what, the 80s is when you started doing that?
Trying to think. Oh gosh. Yeah, 86, 87, I moved back to Minnesota, started David Knox Seminars. And the way to make money in the training business is to have some kind of product. And the first thing I did was audio cassettes, and you sell those in the back of the room. And then I'd have 3 or 4 seminars on those. But then there was a great quote that says, 5 minutes of show me is worth 5 hours of tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really liked video. In fact, the first thing I did was a video called Pricing Your Home to Sell. And it was a
Okay.
short video that realtors bought from me, gave to the homeowner, and the video told sellers the importance of pricing properly. And that's when I learned to write, script, light, edit. We hired professional people to do it, but I would do a lot of the editing.
Right.
And I got good at video editing, and I enjoyed it. And I've been doing it ever since. I've got a timeline open right now that I'm editing. And then when I did the audio cassettes, I said, I wonder if we could demonstrate real estate skills rather than me just a talking head. How come we could demonstrate? And I did role playing in training. So I had this idea, and I remember talking to my wife about it. I said, I got this idea. What do you think? And she says, that's one of the best ideas I've ever heard. And the idea was to go on location with a video camera and shoot. The first iteration was I played the agent, and we hired actors to play customers and clients.
Right.
And we went out and shot live role plays, unscripted. It was called the Mentor Series 2. To this day, one of the best products I've ever produced.
I
And that
agree.
was in 1998. And then I would shoot the seminar around it, and I would introduce the B-roll. And we had 12 VHS and then DVD. They're now online, but we have to put them in our classics section because people come across them and go, oh, this stuff's old. So I have a disclaimer. Yes, this was 1998. But if you listen to it on audio, you would have no idea it was that old. So then we needed a kind of an update on that. I thought, why don't we, instead of me being the agent, why not have agents be the agents? Just go on
Right.
location and take our cameras and videotape real agents on actual transactions. And that's hard because you had to
There
find
is.
an agent that would let you do it and be good enough that they didn't suck on video.
It's absolutely right.
And mine were perfect. And I say that because I edited out my mistakes. I never wanted to show the wrong way to do it. So we'd go through a whole take on a listing presentation, and I edited it so it was perfect.
Right. Absolutely.
With shooting real agents, it was more difficult. If they said something stupid, we'd cut it out. But it was very similar, and people agents believed it because they knew it was reality. There was no script, no nothing. We were running and gunning with cameras, and we'd chase them up. Then we'd go into the house and we'd set up the camera and we'd shoot the actual listing presentation. And then later I'd introduce it. And to this day, Real Estate Live is one of our best features. Now, we haven't gone on location lately. Those stupid lockdowns kind of killed that, but
I tell you, that's some of my favorite videos is that the mentor series that you have and the role plays. It's so impactful. It's one thing to hear it being said, like you're talking about a talking head. There's
yeah,
so many trainers out there that just bark at you and tell you, you need to do this, you need to do this, but to actually be able to show somebody an action and do the role play. And I was fortunate enough with the company I originally worked for, they actually it was a development, big master plan golf course community out in Orlando, Florida.
oh,
Um,
was that the Villages?
it was Reunion Resort and Club was the name of it.
Oh,
And
okay.
had Palmer, Watson, and Nicholas courses, all three in the same. It was amazing, just a beautiful
Okay.
place. And so we had a very polished presentation that we would do. And we had a team of 25 sales agents, and they came out with the old camcorder during
Yeah.
training, and they would videotape us role playing this.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, when you watch yourself on video, you start to realize you do some pretty weird things
Yeah.
without realizing it, just twiddling your thumbs or rocking back and forth or whatever the case may be. When it's on video, the video is not lying. I'm sure that would be extremely, extremely high pressure if you're, as a real estate agent, going out and doing presentations with a video recorder.
Yeah. I have said to agents, I said, if you want the number one top best training that exists on the planet is to do a role play, video record it and play it back. Because 5 minutes of a playback of a role play will do more to change your behavior than me zooming in every day for 8 hours until you die.
Yes, that's so true.
No. Yeah.
And people are so scared of it. And
They're scared of it. The fact they're afraid of it makes it axiomatic. They need to do it. And I say, what are you afraid of? I'm afraid I suck. You do suck. So the question is, do you want to suck with a client or on video with another agent? You're
what's
going to suck. You just, the only choice you have is in front of whom?
right?
And I don't know. I don't know. I
That's,
understand the fear, but at some point, grow up, be a professional, practice, and try it in front of a camera. And then when you get in front of a real client, you feel good.
yeah, I love that mentor series. You're a natural on stage, your stage presence and comedic at times with some of your presentations. So I really love watching them. It keeps the audience engaged. And I actually brought up one of the videos with one of my agents just the other day, and she was laughing at the comedy, and it was intended comedy. She was in the lesson. You could tell she was really absorbing the lesson too. She was like, "This is great. I didn't even realize this was here." And so I love that mentor series for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, after that, we started VHS. I went to DVD. And then in 2009, I took it online. And the problem was, the good news is we were early to get online. The bad news was there was not enough bandwidth. So our early videos had to be in 4:3, a low resolution. So that's why we created the classic section. Because if you come across the mentor series and some of those, they were all kind of low res 4:3 aspect ratio. And people see those and they go, oh, I can't watch those. So we had to strip them all out, put them in a classic section. And then finally bandwidth got good enough where we could shoot high definition. Now, of course, we shoot in high def. We don't shoot in 4K because there's just zero need for that level of quality in a training video. And
Yeah.
created what I call the Netflix of real estate training. And it was an online delivery to all of our clients. And you're one of them. You subscribe to it. And
Yeah.
companies use it to train their agents.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible, just the amount of just valuable information there. There's any subject you can possibly think of, you've got a video about it.
Yeah, they're all in there.
Any subject, even from leadership as a leader to business
Yep.
structure, which is another thing that kind of gets lost in the shuffle a lot when it comes to training, is actual
Right.
business structure and creating teams and all sorts of things. But I love that mentor series, that good meat and potatoes of sales and role play. And I tell you, it's challenging with agents these days to get agents to come in and do role play because we've become so virtual with everything. And the value of that belly to belly, face to face role play is tremendous. Just to be in front of someone role playing that is rooting for you, or they want to help you, and just back and forth and back and forth. That's how I learned, and I love it when people are willing to do that.
Yeah. And you can do it on Zoom. I've done role plays on Zoom and it's not as good as in person, but it still works. It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to get people back in reality, all these stupid lockdown, Zoom, mass, all that crap. We just destroyed so much. And I think
Yep.
agents now are kind of like the tail wagging the dog. We kowtow to we become codependent to the real estate agent. And it's too bad. I feel bad for brokers. You spend all the money, you take all the risk, you do all the marketing, you do all that stuff. The agents get all the money. And then, so I feel bad for brokers. And I say to agents, come on, respect your broker and get back in the office, get face to face, do some role playing, and get back into in-person meetings. You
Yeah.
can't build a culture over Zoom.
It's extremely challenging. It really is.
Yeah. And I've even said to some brokers, I said, quit Zooming your meetings. If they don't come in, they don't get it. And I've also said, if you're doing a Zoom, don't record it, because if they know you're going to record it, then they don't even come to the Zoom. And if they do, they got their camera off, and the odds of them watching the recorded Zoom, I don't think that's ever happened in the history of Zoom.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, record it. What's the point? Zoom,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a strange time that we live in, to where it's everything is looked at as an inconvenience. It's like we have to make everything convenient to everyone, versus people making it convenient to the business. It's a weird time to be alive in that aspect. But yet, as far as something else I have to compliment you on, as far as the video series, and you've been doing this for quite some time, what, 40 plus years now?
Yep.
And you continue to stay on the cutting edge of technology, and you continue to invite folks in that are out in the trenches every day, and you're interviewing folks that are out doing real estate business every day. And I have to compliment you on that, for staying up to date and not becoming just the dinosaur.
Thank you. But I actually don't do a lot of the cutting edge technology, because there's some people out there like Marky Lemons Ryle. She's absolute cutting edge in AI. And in fact, we featured her on some of our videos on a lot of the social media stuff like that, which she was really good at. And she was going to come in and shoot some stuff on AI for me, but I've got another guy here in town who's a programmer. He's going to shoot some stuff on AI. So I have tended to stay more into the selling skill, interaction, relationship skills that agents need to have, because the technology changes about every hour and a half. And so I have no interest in teaching that, because what's the point, especially on video? You record it, an hour later, you got to throw it out.
Irrelevant. Yeah. It's irrelevant an hour later. Yeah.
So on the pure technology side of it, there's some people out there that do. Marky does that. And I think Jared James does some good stuff on the social media part of it. So they're doing a great job on that. And I tend to focus on, after your technology works, now what?
Right. That's right. I love that.
After it works, that at some point, you're going to have to interact on a human level and ask questions and listen. So I tend to focus on that. And I also like to focus on more of the personal development, values, goals, and objectives. What do you want in your life? How are you going to get it? And more importantly, why do you want it? Who do you want to become? And getting into gratitude and being a morning person, a morning achiever, and a lot of that very personal growth stuff.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. And I love what you said there too, about at some point, you're going to have human interaction. And I think we have, as an industry, we focus so much on setting the appointment. I heard an interview the other day, a guy says, real estate agents don't want leads anymore. They want appointments. And and then where does it stop? You don't want appointments anymore. You want someone else to go out and do them for you. It's
they just want to send me the check.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just send me the check. And then I want 105% of the commission.
Absolutely right. So yeah, that's some of the frustrations of the new technology, is people get focused on putting out this great content, and then at some point you have to have actual selling skills and you have to bring something of value to the table when you have an appointment with someone. I love what you're doing there with actual teaching sales skills. And I think the industry has gotten away from that. And that's when you devalue yourself and you become just labeled a door opener.
Yeah. It's just sad. It's when I started with Ralph Burnett, when I was training, we had a 4-week training program from 9 to 1 every day for 4 weeks.
Yep.
How many companies do that nowadays? I don't know if anybody does that. I don't know how agents are getting trained. And then when I have a broker cancel the subscription to me, I said, what are you going to do? And they go, well, I don't know, nothing. How's that? Okay.
Yep. Yep. And I'm guilty of that myself. I decided I was going to do it in-house for a while. I left your program for a bit, and then I realized the value of it, and I came back to it, David, because it is so valuable to have this library of information. So I sincerely appreciate it. And tell me about the awards that you've received at the Hall of Fame of the National Speaking Association, I believe.
Yeah. I guess for NSA, I got my CSP, Certified Speaking Professional, and then I got the Hall of Fame, and Riz Media, the On the Shoulders of Giants Award. They gave that to me at a convention, and that's nice recognition. But
That's you're so humble about it, as though
they're fun, but the real recognition, the awards that mean a lot to me, is when an agent comes up and tells me something they learned or their life changed, or they quit drinking because I came forward about not drinking. And I've had people come up and do that. And I go, that to me, it literally could save somebody's life. So that to me those are the kinds of things that feel good. And I was at a car
incredible.
wash the other day. I pulled into a car wash, and before I go through the car wash, I stop and spray my wheels because they don't do wheels very well. And this young kid came out and, hey, do you need any help? I said, no, I'm just spraying the wheels. Oh, this is a really nice car. What do you do that you got this car? And I said, I run my own business. And what is it? And he kept asking me all these questions. And
Yeah,
I thought, good for him.
yeah,
And he said, do you have any advice for me as a young guy? And I went, like a lot, I guess, first of all, maybe start your own business. It's a good way to make a lot of money and be your own boss. And I said, if I had any real advice, I don't know how much you make, but whatever it is, take 10% of everything you make and put it in a savings account and don't ever touch it. Live on 90% of what you make. If you get a buck tip here at the car wash, take a dime and put it someplace. To do
right,
that forever, for the next decades, you'll be a multimillionaire.
right.
And he goes, yeah, I could tell he was listening to that. And then I said, if you really want to be sure to be successful, stay off drugs and alcohol.
Yeah,
Remove that from your life. That alone will take care of your health and the whole world. And I don't know, a couple other things. So it was fun working with young kids. And a lot of them will say, I'm looking for, I want to make a lot of money. And I said, you got your whole life to make money. And I said, but here's my favorite quote: youth is wasted on the young. There will be a time in your life where you would spend billions of dollars to be the age you are today. So enjoy your youth, because you've got something that's far more valuable than money. Focus on financial security, but remember, enjoy today. You're young. I don't know. This kid must have been, I don't know, teenage, 18, 20 or something like that. But when I talk
yeah,
to young people, which is one of my favorite things to do, I just said, enjoy the days that you are at right now. And there's a quote that says, we spend our youth creating wealth, then spend our wealth repurchasing our youth. I said, enjoy your
so
youth, have
true.
some fun, enjoy it now. And unfortunately, and I've heard some of those quotes years ago, some people might say that I work really hard, but I screw off a lot over the years. Yeah, there were times when I started, I'd do the 80 hours a week. But no, I have a lot of fun. I try to take time off and enjoy life as well.
Yeah, I'm guilty of, while building my business up, there was a decade of no vacations and no weekend football games, no weekends on the lake or anything like that. It
Mm.
was just straight work, and eventually you'll burn out if you just continue doing it like that
Yeah.
for a decade. Eventually,
Yeah.
it's just you'll end up burning out, and
Yeah.
that's not good for anybody.
No, and I know I've got a good friend of mine who's a top agent, and he pays more in income tax than most people gross in sales volume.
Yes,
And he couldn't spend the money that he has. If he tried to pee it away, he physically couldn't spend it all. And he knows that. And I said, at some point, if you lose your wife or lose your health or lose your friends, there's not enough money on this planet that will replace some of the most important things in life. Take a day off.
yeah,
But people throw listings at him and it's hard to turn it down. So I get that. And he's also been through a couple of divorces where he lost all his money. And I get that. I talked to another woman, I talked to her yesterday. She's just an incredible woman. Yeah. Her name is Venus Morris Griffin. She's in our training.
I've seen some
And
of her videos.
yeah,
Yeah,
she's one of the more amazing people ever. And she said, David, I used to make $2 million a year, and now the market's changed a little bit. So I'm only going to make $700,000 this year. And
totally gonna
she's
make.
worried about money. And I said, but she told me some of her net worth numbers. And I said, Venus, no, I think you're fine. I think you're okay. She said she went through, her husband was sent to prison for
Mm,
45 years for some horrible crimes, leaving her with zero money. She was making 20 grand a year
wow.
in real estate as a part-time, just as a mom. Had 6 children, husband sent to prison, 20 grand a year. And her divorce lawyer said, "No, you don't get alimony from prison." He says, "You better get a real job." And she says, "I think I can make real estate a real job." And she
Yeah,
says, a year later, I was making more than my lawyer. He doubled
that's
her income
fantastic.
every year for 5 years. Literally, she said 100, 200, 400, 800, 1.6. And I don't know where I was going in the whole train of thought, but I said to Venus, I said, enjoy your life. I said, you are charming, you are beautiful, you're healthy. She works out every day. She says, I don't get this way by doing nothing. She works
Yeah.
at it. And just said, enjoy your life, Venus. You've got so much going for you. Enjoy your life. And I said, I'm trying to do that as well.
Yeah. I saw the video all about her and work-life balance, because that phrase is thrown out a lot these days. And so I'm also very passionate about my work. I don't look at work as something it's not something that I don't want to do. So I enjoy work. And it seemed like that was the case with her and her story with, man, what a load to carry with I think 6 children. And then the 7th came along, something like that. And yeah.
Yeah.
What
She
a
called
story.
me in, I think it was December of 16. And I got a message, somebody named Venus called you. And I went, oh, do I have to return the call? It's 30 below. I just want to go home. And I called her up. Hi, my name is Venus Morse Griffin. I got a story I'd like to share. And my broker said that you're a national trainer, that you'd be the one to help sell the story. And I'm still kind of, okay, go ahead. And while I was on the phone, I went to delta.com and I went Minneapolis, Augusta, Georgia, January 2017. He said, what are you doing these days? I want to come at a time when you're on listing presentation. I get listings every day. It doesn't matter when you come, I'll be getting listings. And I said, okay. And we went out and did a feature on her, and that's in our training. And she's one of the more remarkable human beings I've ever met. And I asked Venus, what can I do for you? And she says, I want to be in the national training circuit. So I helped her get a speaking slot at NAR. And she just finished her book, which is coming out, I think, January, February. And in the book, she credits me for my help in getting a speaking circuit. I can't wait till that comes out. And they also want to make a movie out of her. In fact, she interviewed Kate Hudson and Reese Witherspoon, both wanted to play her in a movie.
Holy cow.
And she sent me screenshots of the Zoom with these 2 actresses. And I said, are you going to do the movie? She says, they want me to do it. My kids don't want me to. And
Really?
Yeah. The kids they're not ready to have her do a movie. The book was okay because they didn't think that many people would read it.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Yeah, that's wow. What an impact that her story probably has already had on people, and I'm sure that's.
Yeah, when she's done speaking, the audience is in tears, standing ovations. I get choked up just thinking about her. Yeah, I'm grateful that I ever met her. And like I said yesterday, I came across a picture from the video shoot, and I just texted it to her. So remember this? And she goes, she said something about, I look better now, because she had just finished her pregnancy. And I said, you were beautiful then, but okay, you're more beautiful now. And then we called and had a nice chat. And I think she's engaged, going to be married in a year or something.
That's fantastic. And looking back at your career, and I was like, David's lived a life of servitude. You've been a life of putting others ahead of yourself in a lot of ways, because the training resources that you provide are so helpful to so many. And I personally want to thank you. And I've benefited greatly from knowing you. And I really want to say thank you for that. And
You're welcome.
Thank you for being on the podcast too, David. I really do appreciate that. And we'll go ahead and wrap things up. And man, what a career you've had. And thanks again, David.
Thank you very much, Joey. It's a pleasure. I love doing stuff like this. So it's fun.
All right.
That's it for this episode of Homebrew. If it resonated with you or gave you a fresh perspective, share it with someone else who's working hard to make their mark. Subscribe, stay curious, and remember, no matter the challenge, keep pushing forward, because success is brewed one step at a time. We'll see you next time. Same place, new story.